Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this week's English Khutbah, and the topic is Gardens of Delight. Alhamdulillah, all praises are due to Allah, who has created lush meadows and gardens on earth, and has brought forth from it all kinds of crops and fruits. And I testify that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah, Lord of the heavens and the earth. And I testify that our Master, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the best of all creation. O Allah, send your peace, blessings and mercy upon him, his family, his companions, and all of those who follow them in the best of ways until the last day. Amma ba'd, to continue. I advise you, O servants of Allah and myself, to have taqwa of Allah. For indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. O you who have believed, have taqwa of Allah, and let every soul look to what it has put forth for tomorrow, and have taqwa of Allah. Indeed, Allah is acquainted with what you do. O believers, amongst Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's great signs in His creation and His magnificent blessings upon humanity, blessings that necessitate gratitude, is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has subjugated and facilitated earth for us. For if we reflect, we will see that He is the one who has spread out the earth. He is the one who has prepared it. He is the one who has embedded within it the elements of its growth, be they sunlight, air, soil and water. Then we will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has indeed facilitated and made easy for humans to cultivate the earth and to cultivate from it its crops and fruits by cultivating within it vegetation and plants. And about this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَآيَاتٌ لَهُمُ الْأَرْضُ الْمَيْتَةُ أَحْيَيْنَاهَا وَأَخْرَجْنَا مِنْهَا حَبًّا فَمِنْهُ يَأْكُلُونَ وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا جَنَّاتٍ مِّن نَخِيلٍ وَأَعْنَابٍ وَفَجَّرْنَا فِيهَا مِنَ الْعُيُونِ لِيَأْكُلُوا مِن ثَمَرِهِ وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ. And a sign for them is the dead earth. We have brought it to life and brought forth from it grain, and from it they eat. And we placed therein gardens of date palms and grapevines, and caused springs to gush forth from it, that they may eat of its fruit. And their hands have not produced it, so will they not be grateful? Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the different forms of vegetations by which we can derive benefit from. And in this regard, He's named a specific surah after a tree from which we have immense benefit. And this is the zaytun or olive tree. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالدِّينِ وَالزَّيْتُونَ, by the fig and the olive. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in doing so is reminding us of the many blessings He has given us in the different forms of vegetation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then further reminds us about the different stages that go into plant growth to make us understand its significance and appreciate its great benefits. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلْيَنظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَىٰ طَعَامِهِ أَنَّا صَبَبْنَا الْمَاءَ صَبًّا ثم شققنا الأرض شقا فأنبتنا فيها حبا وعنبا وقضبا وزيتونا ونخلا وحدائق غلبا وَفَاكِهَةً وَأَبًّا مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ. So let mankind look at his food, how it is that we poured down water in torrents, and then we broke open the earth and splitted it, and caused to grow within it grain and grapes and herbage, and olives and date palms, and gardens of dense shrubbery, and fruit and grass, as an enjoyment for you and your grazing livestock. So brothers and sisters, this idea of all of this variety of foods that we have can be traced back in its natural form to the forms of cultivation that we see facilitated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even our livestock, which is food that we eat from the different animals, depends on this herbage and this grass and this shrubbery and these greens. So brothers and sisters, we should recognize that within plants and much of this vegetation is the different blessings that we partake in, not just from food, but also different forms of these elements come into play when it comes to clothing, medicine, and even the sense of shade and warmth that we benefit from. Through them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stabilizes the soil, He purifies the air, and just the very act of just looking at greenery gladdens the hearts. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَالْأَرْضَ مَدَدْنَاهَا وَأَلْقَيْنَا فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ وَأَنْبَتْنَا فِيهَا مِنْ كُلِّ زَوْجٍ بَهِيجٍ. And the earth we have spread it out and cast therein firmly set mountains and caused to grow therein something of every beautiful kind. And elsewhere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes the blessings of fertile gardens. He says, أَمَّنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَأَنزَلْنَا لَكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَأَنبَتْنَا بِهِ حَدَائِقَ ذَاتَ بَهْجَةٍ. Or, who is the one who created the heavens and the earth and sent down for you rain from the sky, causing to grow thereby gardens of joyful beauty? So brothers and sisters, this sense of blessings that we have should not be forgotten. And likewise, we should recognize how the importance Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has attached to agriculture has been immortalized in the Quran by the very actions of the prophets. For we see in the efforts of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, who advised the people of his time in terms of preparing for a drought by saying, قَالَ تَزْرَعُونَ سَبْعَ سِنِينَ دَأَبًا. He said that you will sow for 7 years diligently. Likewise, our Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam practiced farming and urged his companions to cultivate the land. He said, مَنْ كَانَتْ لَهُ الْأَرْضِ فَلْيَزْرَعْهَا. Whoever has land, let him cultivate it. And he would personally oversee his companions' land and advise them by saying, إِزْرَعُوهَا أَوْ عَزْرِعُوهَا. Either you cultivate it yourselves or you give it to someone else who can cultivate it. And we see in just even the actions of how that great Sahabi Salman al-Farsi radiyallahu anhu, when he needed to acquire his own freedom through the planting of 300 date palms, then we see how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged the companions to assist, and they all brought forward the saplings that they could. This shows that they were all engaged in many forms of planting the saplings. And once they were brought forward, then the Prophet ﷺ himself placed the saplings in the ground with his own blessed hands. And then Sayyidina Salman, may Allah be pleased with him, says, by Allah, not a single one of them failed to grow. So this remarkable example showcases the Prophet's encouragement of agriculture, of mutual support and environmental care. And it provides an enduring model for us to emulate, whereby we too should plant, we too should seek to grow food, for the prosperity of our communities and the environment. We should be mindful of neglecting the earth, of causing the plant life and agriculture to be destroyed, for such actions constitute a type of aggression, an environmental aggression, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden. For He says, وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا, and do not cause corruption in the earth after its reformation. And so the Prophet ﷺ himself warned against such practices, and he asked for certain forms of crops and vegetation to not be destroyed. In an instruction to one of his companions, he said, وَلَا تَحْرِقَنَّ نَخْلًا وَلَا تَعْقِرْهَا وَلَا تَقْطَعْ شَجَرَةً مَطْعَمَةً. He said, do not burn palm trees, do not cut them down, and do not destroy fruit-bearing trees. And likewise, brothers and sisters, we should recognize that in the different types of soils and the different types of climates, there are different forms of plant growth that result, and they all serve a purpose, resulting in the diverse produce and the abundant fruits and vegetables that we benefit from. And so this in turn, this variety fulfills the different needs we have. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَفِي الْأَرْضِ قِطَعٌ مُتَجَاوِرَاتٌ وَجَنَّاتٌ مِّنْ أَعْنَابٍ وَنَخِيلٌ صِنْوَانٌ وَغَيْرُ صِنْوَانٌ يُسْقَى بِمَاءٍ وَاحِدٍ وَنُفَضِّلُ بَعْضَهَا عَلَى بَعْضٍ فِي الْأُكُلِ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and within the land are neighboring plots and gardens of grapevines and crops and palm trees, both similar and dissimilar. And they are watered with one water, but we make some of them exceed others in quality of fruit. Indeed, in that are the signs for people who reflect with their intellects. So brothers and sisters, this is an imperative for us to take advantage, especially in the current gentle breezes and moderate climates that we have in our lands, and to see that we are planting and taking care of the gardens of our homes, our schools, our institutions, our mosque courtyards. And this is why there is a pioneering national program at the moment called Plant the Emirates. And this effort has been undertaken with the hope of earning rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a general reminder of one of the means by which we can draw nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by charitable deeds through the form of planting, through the form of looking after vegetation. For the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ma min muslimin yaghrisu gharsan," that there is no Muslim who plants a tree or cultivates land, or yazra'u zar'an, or cultivates land, فَيَأْكُلُ مِنْهُ طَيْرٌ, and that a bird eats from it, or insanun, or a human being eats from it, or bahimatun, or an animal eats from it, إِلَّا كَانَ لَهُ بِهِ صَدَقَةٌ, except that such a person shall have a charity, attained the reward of charity. And not just any charity, brothers and sisters. If you reflect, then as long as this benefit continues, then this is an ongoing charity. Sadaqatun jariyah, an ongoing charity. And so one of the great ways by which we can have charity that will continue to benefit us even when we leave this world is to plant and cultivate land, plant trees, plant beautiful forms of vegetation, and cultivate land. And this is a way by which the one who does this, his rank is increased and increased and increased, well, even after they may leave this world. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the deep understanding of hadith such as this and of the Quranic ayat that we recited, so that we can bring about lasting benefits to our brothers and sisters wheresoever we be in this world, and that we may rise in we continue to rise in our spiritual ranks, and so that we will be of those who, as the Quran says, تُؤْتِي أُكُلَهَا كُلَّ حِينٍ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا, those who can sows things so that they can bring forth its fruits at all times by the permission of its Lord. تُؤْتِي أُكُلَهَا كُلَّ حِينٍ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to do this. May He give us the ability to care for our environment, to look after our communities and to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we've been instructed. I say this and I seek forgiveness from Allah for myself and for you. So seek His forgiveness, for He's the most forgiving and the most merciful. And with that comes to an end this week's khutbah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.